Oliver Asks for More, a story by Charles Dickens. Charles John Huffam Dickens was an English writer and a social critic. He created some of the world's best known fictional characters and is regarded by many as the greatest novelist of the Victorian era. His works enjoyed unprecedented popularity during his lifetime, and by the 20th century, critics and scholars had recognized him as a literary genius. His novels and short stories are widely read today. Born in Portsmouth, Dickens left school at the age of 12 to work in a boot blacking factory when his father was incarcerated in a debtor's prison. After 3 years, he returned to school before he began his literary career as a journalist. Dickens edited a weekly journal for 20 years, wrote 15 novels, 5 novellas, hundreds of short stories and non-fiction articles, lectured and performed readings extensively, was an indefatigable letter writer, and campaigned vigorously for children's rights, for education, and for other social reforms. He was also a social reformer bent on getting better living conditions and social justice for the poor. He was a social commentator. He is best known for his realistic portrayal of Victorian England. The writer held a mirror to the happenings of the then times. It is the story of an orphan boy named Oliver who is brought to a children's home. We see how he is treated harshly and slowly starved at this place. This story shows us how society mistreats poor orphaned kids. It narrates how Oliver was born in the workhouse, the death of his mother, and the living conditions in the house he stayed. The boys in the house almost starved to death. One day, Oliver asked for more soup. This turned life into hell for the boy. He was locked up in a dark room and was thrashed by the officer in charge. Then comes the notice that anyone who takes the boy would be given £5, appeared on the front gate of the house. Oliver's story unfolds in the background of the 19th century Industrial Revolution. The story shows us how society mistreats poor orphaned kids. The meals that the children are given at the workshop are so insufficient that they all suffer from slow starvation. Yet they aren't allowed to ask for more, and Oliver is punished when he does so. In the workhouse of an unidentified place in England, a child was born. As the infant struggled for survival, the pretty young mother had passed away. The newly arrived inmate was clothed in old garments. Oliver, an orphan boy, was brought to a children's home. The kids were being underfed, were extremely thin, and wore rags as clothing. The members of the board who managed the logistics of the workhouse for the poor orphans had discovered that the workshop was the regular place of public entertainment for the poorer classes, where they had breakfast, dinner, tea, and supper all year for free. It was all play and no work, so they decided that the inmates of the workhouse would be issued 3 meals of thin soup a day. On Sundays, they had a small piece of bread. The boys, famished for want of more food, they polished their bowls with their spoons till the last scrap. Their food supply was horribly insufficient. Oliver and his companions suffered the tortures of slow starvation. They became wild with hunger. One day, Oliver's friends decided that Oliver would go up to the master after dinner and ask for more. The evening arrived and dinner took place. After finishing his soup, Oliver went to the master and said he wanted some more. The fat, healthy master turned pale, astonished at the rebel. In a fit of rage, he aimed a blow at Oliver's head with a spoon. He reported the matter to the beadle, Mr. Bumble. He declared that the boy would be hung someday. Nobody contradicted his opinion, and Oliver was ordered into instant confinement. The following morning, a notice was pasted offering £5 to anyone who would take Oliver away as an apprentice to any trade, business, or profession. The themes: the failure of charity. Much of the first part of Oliver Twist challenges the organizations of charity run by the church and the government in Dickens' time. The system Dickens describes was put into place by the Poor Law of 1834, which stipulated that the poor could only receive government assistance if they moved into government workhouses. Residents of those workhouses were essentially inmates whose rights were severely curtailed by a host of horrendous and onerous regulations. Furthermore, as Dickens points out, the officials who ran the workhouses violated the human values they preached to the poor. Poor people were treated badly. One of the main themes of all Charles Dickens novels was how the poorest section in the society were horribly treated under the English law of 1834. This is one of the key themes in Oliver Twist, where we can see the failure of the workhouse system that was unable to look after the poor and the lonely orphans who were in their care. Fate is another one of the key themes in Oliver Twist. Fate is when things happen that is outside our control. Oliver Twist's fate would be to live in the workhouse for the rest of his life. He is a poor orphan, and so his fate was set to stay poor for the rest of his life. One of the main themes in Oliver Twist is social underclass. Social class means the group that we are known as in society. For example, there is the poor working class that Oliver Twist is a part of, and then there is the upper middle class who are the richer, just like Oliver Twist's father. Dickens uses the theme of social class in Oliver Twist to show the difference in lifestyle for those who are rich and for those who are poor. In short, talking about the characters, Oliver Twist is the novel's protagonist. He is an orphan boy born in a workhouse, and Dickens uses his pathetic existence to criticize the public policy towards the poor in 1830s England. Though treated with cruelty and surrounded by coarseness for most of his life, Oliver somehow survives it. Mr. Bumble, the pompous, self important, minor church official for the workhouse where Oliver is born. Though Mr. Bumble preaches Christian morality, he behaves without compassion towards the paupers under his care. Dickens mercilessly satirizes his self righteousness, greed, hypocrisy, and folly, of which his name is an obvious symbol. If we come to talk about Mr. Sowerberry, Mr. Sowerberry is etched as a tall, thin man dressed in black. He is a coffin maker with whom Oliver was apprenticed. When he informs that he has completed making 2 coffins for the women who died in the workhouse in the previous night, Mr. Bumble says that it is excellent work and he is going to be rich very soon. Perhaps this implies that deaths due to disease and poverty have become common among the underprivileged of the society. This will prove beneficial for the coffin maker because more deaths mean more coffins. This remark shows callousness or want of sensitivity in the speaker as well as the society that tolerates such inhumanity. Bumble making such a mean comment shows that he has no sympathy for the ones who die. He also refers to the boy whom he wants to pass off along with 5 pounds. So this is Oliver who is being punished for asking for more food. Talking about some other aspects of this story, in Victorian England's social hierarchy system, the noble class thrived and enjoyed luxurious life. The middle class also progressed through businesses and salaried jobs. However, the lower or working class, consisting of unskilled laborers, worked in awful and horrible unsanitary conditions. They did not have any access to clean water, food, and education for their children, or even proper clothing. They were treated like criminals. With nowhere else to go, they had to resort to find shelter into the workhouses, which were run like prisons with strict rules to adhere. An institutionalized welfare system is a theme recurring brought out in Oliver Asks for More. The brutality meted out to children, where we sympathize with Oliver and know that he did not deserve such harsh treatment meted out to him, but the poor was just dictated by his extreme hunger and misery. Yet he did not have a choice. Whether they submitted to cruelty or they rebelled, they had to undergo trauma to extreme hunger and inhuman treatment, and endless days of hard labor without adequate rest. The very fact that they were not given enough food or clothes is revealed in the story itself. This is followed by the punishment for asking for more. This is an instance of cruelly suppressing the voice of poor ravenous orphans. The Victorian society treated the lower class with contempt and derision. The children did not get education, they were made to work hard, and they even had no drinking water or shelter or provisions for basic hygiene. This mentality is seen among the authorities of workhouse also. Mr. Bumble does not suffer any pangs of conscience regarding the ill treatment of the boys in the workhouse, and he is a typical example of power dictating the fate of the weak in the 19th century England.